Welcome to Star Trek Selections, The Next Generation. Today I will be discussing my top 5 episodes of Season 5. This season of Star Trek The Next Generation is full of great episodes, so I felt it necessary to mention some much-beloved classics that do not quite make my list. We have The First Duty, where Wesley and his Academy friends are questioned about the death of another cadet, which featured Star Trek Voyager's Tom Paris, Robert Duncan McNeil, as Nick Locarno, his first Star Trek appearance. I, Borg, where the Enterprise rescues a Borg drone, severs it from the collective, and he develops a friendship with Geordi, who even gives him a name, Hugh. And then there's the two-part event Unification, which features Leonard Nimoy once again as Spock. All great episodes which would easily slot into my top 10, but of course, this is a top 5. And at number 5, The Inner Light, directed by Peter Lauritsen, and written by Peter Allen Fields and Morgan Gendel from Gendel's Story. When the Enterprise encounters an alien probe, it scans the ship and fires an energy beam at Picard, who suddenly finds himself on a strange planet with everybody knowing him as a man named Kamen. Picard spends years trying to get back until gradually accepting this new life, even having children, and attempts to save the planet from the ever-worsening drought that plagues it. Meanwhile, back on the Enterprise, Picard is unconscious. He lives essentially a lifetime on the planet Catan until he is informed that the probe was sent by the people of Catan as a sort of message in a bottle, a way to preserve the memory of their people. Picard then wakes back on the Enterprise mere seconds after he was hit by the beam. Inspired by a Beatles song, always a plus for me, The Inner Light is one of the most highly regarded episodes of Star Trek. In fact, I imagine most Trekkies would be appalled that it only made it to number 5 on my Season 5 list. It is a genuinely great episode, with a tour-de-force performance from Patrick Stewart, an intriguing concept, and a beautifully written story. I just happen to enjoy 4 other episodes of the season a little more. There are a lot of great episodes in this season. One of my favourite and most enduring aspects of the episode is the origin of Picard's Resican flute. It's basically an Irish tin whistle, which will have a prominent place later in one of my favourite Next Gen episodes. See Season 6 for that one. Still, it is impossible not to recognise the excellence of The Inner Light, and it would be criminal of me to not include it as one of my favourite episodes of Season 5. Number 4, Darmok, directed by Winrich Kolbe and written by Philip Zebnik and Joe Menosky from Menosky's Story. The Enterprise makes contact with a Temerian ship. However, even with the Universal Translator, attempts to communicate are futile, since the Temerians speak entirely in metaphor, every sentence an allusion to Temerian history, for which the Enterprise crew have no frame of reference. The Temerian captain, played by Paul Winfield, has himself and Picard beamed down to a nearby planet, and the Temerian ship blocks any further transport. Picard is at first understandably concerned, assuming the Temerian captain wishes to battle him, but he is simply trying to reenact the Temerian legend of Darmok and Jalad. Picard is gradually beginning to understand when a creature attacks them. The Temerian is injured by the creature, and he and Picard start to truly communicate, before the Temerian succumbs to his injuries. He had sacrificed himself, and risked both their lives in the hope of being able to communicate. Picard has returned to the Enterprise and conveys his newfound understanding to the Temerians. Darmok is just straight-up great science fiction, highlighting the difficulty and importance of communication. Stewart and Winfield play their roles immaculately, and the story unfolds with great sensitivity and no shortage of tension either. It is one of those episodes where you just fall more in love with it with every scene, and even after every viewing. And time has certainly backed up that idea, since it is now beloved and often quoted. Darmok is very easily one of my favourite episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation's 5th season.
Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. Darmok and Jalad on the ocean.
Number 3, Conundrum, directed by Les Landau and written by Barry Skolnick from a story by Paul Schiffer. After the Enterprise is scanned by an unknown vessel, the crew are left with no memory of who they are, and there seems to be an extra crew member on the bridge. When they manage to access the crew manifest, the mysterious person is identified as Executive Officer Kieran McDuff. They also find out that they are at war with a race called the Lysians, who, as they soon realize, are of absolutely no threat to the power of the Enterprise, which is rightly a point of concern for the crew. The episode is somewhat of a mystery box. I mean, we know that the Federation is not at war, and we know damn well that McDuff is not supposed to be there. But for those who missed it, I don't want to spoil the ending. However, what I love most about it is the exploration of the core of each of our characters. Worf immediately assumes a leadership role. Riker and Troy have a connection that transcends memory. And my favourite aspect is the interaction between Riker and Ensign Ro Laren. Ro is one of the main reasons why I love Season 5 of Next Gen so much. And it is great to see who she is without the burden of the horrible memories she carries. She is fun, flirty, but still retains her sassiness and forthright attitude. It's a ball seeing her seducing Riker, with their usual antagonistic relationship is forgotten. Also, it's very powerful to witness the crew's refusal to blindly follow orders when they know in their hearts, even without knowing who they are, the difference between right and wrong. Conundrum is a well-told mystery with an authentic exploration of the characters and a good dose of action, with an unshakable moral compass. One of my favourite episodes of this excellent season of Star Trek The Next Generation. Number 2, The Outcast, directed by Robert Shearer and written by Jerry Taylor. The Enterprise is assisting a race called the Janai find a missing shuttle. The Janai are a genderless species. Riker and a Janai named Soren, played by Melinda Culia, go to retrieve it. Riker and Soren begin to become close, and Soren explains that a preference toward a particular gender results in being forced to undergo psychotectic therapy to correct the behavior. And she also confesses to being attracted to Riker. When Soren and Riker are discovered making out, Soren is taken by the Janai and put on trial. Riker attempts to take the blame, but Soren stands up for herself. Her eloquent and moving speech, however, falls on deaf ears, and Soren is sent off to be corrected. Riker and Worf attempt to sneak down to the Janai planet to rescue Soren, but it is too late. The therapy has worked, and Soren now believes her earlier feelings to be an aberration. A heartbroken Riker has no choice but to return to the Enterprise without Soren. The Outcast is one of the most tragically beautiful episodes of The Next Generation. It is my favourite non-Troy Riker coupling, and more crucially, has something truly meaningful to say. The first episode to really address LGBT issues, it has been criticised for not doing enough, being too veiled in allegory, but that's what Star Trek does. It takes issues of the present and creates a sci-fi allegory which allows those who would normally be averse to the subject matter an opportunity to engage with it and learn to appreciate a different perspective. In the case of The Outcast, the direct allegory is gay conversion therapy, something that was a major issue at the time. And I believe this episode deals with it sensitively and thoughtfully, and most definitely thoroughly condemns it. One need only listen to Soren's defense of herself, beautifully delivered by Melinda Culia, to see that.
What right do you have to punish us? What right do you have to change us? What makes you think you can dictate how people love each other?
I believe this is one of the most poignant and groundbreaking episodes of Star Trek, and is still relevant today. Important, beautifully written by Jerry Taylor, brilliantly performed by Frakes and Culia, it is very near my favourite episode of TNG's 5th season. Number 1, Cause and Effect, written by Brannon Braga and directed by Jonathan Frakes. The Enterprise is blown up in the cold open. Then Data, Worf, Riker and Dr. Crusher are playing poker. Later, Beverly hears strange voices when she goes to bed. The Enterprise then detects a spatial anomaly, from which a ship suddenly emerges on a collision course with the Enterprise. They are unable to avoid it, and the ship blows up again. Back to the poker game. The The crew begins to experience deja vu, and it is soon discovered that they are in a time loop, and that the voices Beverly is hearing are those of the Enterprise crew right before the ship is destroyed. They soon come up with a plan to have Data send a message to himself in the next loop, which will hopefully allow them to avoid the collision next time around. I love a time loop story, and Cause and Effect is one of the best I've ever seen. I said in my Season 4 video that Remember Me was my favourite Beverly Crusher episode, and that is only because this is more of an ensemble piece with a prominent role for Beverly. She is the first to hear the voices and pick up on the preponderance of deja vu. For me, the real star of Cause and Effect is Jonathan Frakes, not necessarily as Riker, but as director. He delivers an expertly paced, riveting episode of television, which, with the expertise of DP Marvin Rush, masterfully differentiates each version of the same scenes while maintaining the eeriness of their repetitive nature. And Braga's concept perfectly utilizes the time loop device, which is actually my all-time favorite use of the trope. Groundhog Day is a close second. And the eventual resolution is one of my favorite sequences in all of Star Trek. So, for the most consistently great season of Star Trek The Next Generation, Cause and Effect is my number one. Join me next time on Star Trek Selections, when I will be looking at Season 6 of The Next Generation. Make it so.